welcome to this week's episode of Thoroughly Entertained. Make sure to visit our website and enter your email address to get our free summer movie guide. This week we're going to be discussing Matthew McConaughey's new movie Mud, as well as discussing Paramore and Michael Buble's new albums.
This week, Krista and I saw the new Matthew McConaughey movie Mud. Mud is about two teenage boys who live in rural Arkansas who discover an enigmatic stranger living by himself on an island in the middle of the Mississippi River, and they kind of get drawn into his life as they try to help him reunite with his lost love.
So, Scott, we saw Mud yesterday, and I think I was as surprised as you were.
Yeah.
At first, when we got to the theater, that there was more than two people there.
Yeah, I thought we might be having the place to ourselves.
Exactly. And the other thing is how much we enjoyed the movie based on how little information there was really out there about the movie.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both read Entertainment Weekly every week. We see a lot of movies where people that are, we kind of feel like we're in touch with what's going to be released in theaters, and I knew nothing about this movie before we saw it. I mean, when you suggested we saw it, I was like, what?
You're like,
I read this tiny little synopsis, and I'm like, this doesn't sound very interesting, but it's a great movie. It is really, really good. There is not one negative thing I can say about the entire thing, and it's well shot, it's well acted, the story's interesting, just everything about it was really good.
Yeah, it was a brilliant movie, and easily my favorite movie of 2013. It's quiet, it's beautifully shot, like you said, and the acting was so authentic that every single person in the movie felt like a real person, and that's what I appreciated about it. Although the movie, the big name is Matthew McConaughey,
right,
and Reese Witherspoon is in it, but really they are not the central characters. The central character is really Ellis, a 14-year-old boy played by Ty Sheridan, who is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like his vulnerability, his innocence, his emotion, like all of that is so close to the surface and is so real that oftentimes teenagers playing teenagers, they act more world assured and all of that stuff, but they were playing real 14-year-old boys. They still felt like boys, he and his best friend Neckbone, and it was wonderful.
Well, and one of the things I think was kind of a good casting choice is a lot of times in movies you see a 21-year-old playing 16. And so because of that, the person has a little bit too much physical maturity and those types of things. Whereas in this movie, you remember how young 14 is. Because when they said they were 14, I remember looking at the actors and thinking these guys are 10 years old. But that's because normally when you see a 14-year-old on a TV show, it's because it's an 18-year-old playing 14.
Right.
Whereas these kids, it reminds you of how vulnerable and unsure you are of yourself at 14, and how big the world seems and how small you feel in it. Again, Ty Sheridan was great. Jacob Laughlin, who plays Neckbone, his best friend, is funny and wary and a wise ass and all these great little things. And you understand why these two kids are best friends.
Right.
It makes all the sense in the world that these two kids are best friends.
And it's interesting too because as 14-year-olds, they're not so innocent that they aren't aware of some things.
Yeah.
And yet, because they've been raised in the South by parents, and in Neckbone's case by an uncle, to work hard and be respectful and all of that stuff, that they have a confidence about them. And the fact that Neckbone can build and replace a motor, and that he has those skills, and he's 14 years old,
right,
they're not so innocent that they're not capable of doing things, and that's what makes this a great coming-of-an-age tale, because they're dealing with real-life issues of trust and honesty, and what does love mean, and how does love display itself, and can I trust love? That becomes a real central
Absolutely
issue
it does, yeah,
in this movie, and that's what's brilliant. Matthew McConaughey is fantastic, and oftentimes his beautiful good looks and his very cocksure attitude and charm sometimes in the movies replaces people's ability to see how fine of an actor he actually is. And then there's Reese Witherspoon, who plays this white trash woman who is not her typical Southern belle beauty queen that we expect from Reese Witherspoon, which I appreciated as well.
Yeah, and one of the things we kind of talked about a little earlier is how it's interesting in movies how kids get portrayed. You know, in something like Perks of Being a Wallflower, or another movie that I saw recently called The Art of Getting By, which is based about kids living in the city, you know, in New York City, it's different because those kids have an emotional maturity about life and the realities and the emotional realities of life, and that love isn't real, and parents break up and things like that. And so they have that emotional maturity, but they don't have to work hard for anything. They don't have very much personal responsibility. It's so much different from in Mud, where the kids are so emotionally vulnerable and immature about things like love and relationships and real life, but they have this kind of like practical maturity of you have to work to earn your money, you have to work to survive, like, you know, hard work. There's no replacement for hard work and honor and integrity and being, you know, having your word be worth something, you know. And so it was very different how those things get portrayed in a movie. And like I said, I just think that the kids in Mud are really great. Matthew McConaughy, like I said, just something as simple as him having a chipped tooth, just enough to mar his good looks,
right,
makes him seem like a completely different person.
Yeah.
You know, it makes him seem like he seems a little bit scummier and a little bit less trustworthy, and he tells these interesting stories to the kids, and you're not sure how much of what he says is true, and you're not sure what's not, and what he's making up, and what's the reality. And, you know, I just felt like there wasn't anything that could have been better about the way this film was put together.
And because most people did not see it this weekend, Pain and Gain came in number 1. I really encourage you to go and see the movie. It was spectacular, it was phenomenally directed and written, and because it's such a quiet, beautiful tale, it reminded me of more of like movies like Stand By Me.
Absolutely,
like, you know,
I felt a lot like Stand By Me in that.
But better, because there was so many more dimensions to this story than that particular one. So it was easily, we gave it a strong A.
Absolutely.
Enthusiastically, and we want people to go see it because it just is this brilliant little gem that needs to be seen.
Yeah, I cannot recommend it highly enough. If you like movies, because of the story, if you like movies because of great acting performances, you know, if you like movies because of sure-handed direction, I cannot recommend Mud highly enough to anybody who likes movies for those reasons. If you like the flash and the bang, then Pain and Gain's probably more your thing. Iron Man 3, which we'll be seeing next week, will probably be more your thing, and I love those movies too. But occasionally it's nice just to be surprised by just quiet dignity and beauty and just, you know,
great story.
Skill. You know, it's really good. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's transition to some music. We reviewed both Paramore's new self-titled album as well as Michael Bublé's album, To Be Loved. So Scott, you're a huge Paramore fan.
Right.
Why did you love this album?
I think Paramore does radio-friendly rock and roll better than anybody else in the music business right now. I like the fact that their stuff is not too polished, it's not too slick. You can sometimes hear the feedback from the guitars when they're playing. I love Hayley Williams' voice. I think it's terrific. I like the way that they put the lyrics together in these songs. And this album felt a lot more fun than their last few. I think because the band was in a little bit of turmoil, the last album they recorded where there was members of the band leaving and new members coming in, I think there was kind of an emotional heaviness on the last album, that Brand New Eyes, that I didn't love so much. But this got more back to the just loving the music, loving the rhythm and the beats of things,
right,
and just having a lot more fun making it. And I thought this was a great album front to back. And you know, 14 original tracks on it. It has a lot of content, and it's really solid content all the way through.
I'm not as diehard of a fan of Paramore as yours. In fact, this is the first album I've listened to in its entirety, and I enjoyed it as a whole experience.
Yeah.
There were some songs like All For You that I really responded to well. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I like about their music is the fact that they have intelligent lyrics and they do interesting things with the way that they wrap those up in the songs. And most of their songs are, like you said, radio-friendly rock, which is interesting beats and you can bob your head to, and they make you feel good when you listen to them. And that's what I want from my music, generally speaking.
Yeah, and there's a drive to the rhythm and those and that type of thing. And again, I think there's kind of an insistence to the way the drums go, which again, it's just really good music to listen to. It's kind of shut your brain off a little bit sometimes, music as well, just because you can only listen to the music and be okay. And then there's other times where the lyrics are so good that you kind of sink into the song. I think it was a pretty good album, and it was much stronger than their last release. And I can only hope that going forward that this is the music Paramore's going to keep on making. You suggested we listen to Michael Bublé's new album, which I thought was pretty good. But why don't you kind of give me your thoughts on the album as a whole?
Well, Michael Bublé, and this was exactly what I was expecting from him. Generally speaking, the majority or 75% of the material on his albums are standards or covers of classic, traditional, great American music. And then 25% is original material.
Right.
And like his previous albums, the strength is the standards, because these are classic songs for a reason. The reason why so many people have recorded them over and over again. And Buble is extraordinarily talented at doing this. His voice is like chocolatey velvet. It's so delicious to listen to. I don't care what he's singing, I will listen to his album. I will say, however, his original material was not as strong, and it's hard to make classically great songs in original material. But it's a solid album, and I solidly enjoyed it, like all of his previous work.
Yeah, I think if you're a fan of Michael Bublé's voice, which I am, this is not going to disappoint you in any way. You're going to get a ton of really good stuff to listen to. But again, I felt on previous albums he's had more strong original material. I know you and I both really like the song Home, which he wrote. But again, it is hard to kind of find that balance because he really does have a signature style, and to write that type of music is going to be more difficult than just, you know, having some crazy electro beats and making a song that way. So, you know, because his stuff is so kind of classically themed, it is going to be hard to write original music, which I understand. But his standards are flawless. His voice is maybe the best voice in music right now, as far as its tone, as far as its style, as far as his ability to kind of take any type of music that you may have heard 100 times before and make you feel like you're hearing it for the first time. I don't think anybody does that better than he does it. And so it's a good album, but again, the original material was not great. I didn't particularly like any of his new songs. But the standards were brilliant like they always are.
So I give the album a solid B, because it's a reliably consistent and enjoyable album. And like I said, if you're a fan, you'll like it.
Absolutely.
Easily.
Thank you for joining us this week on Thoroughly Entertained. We'd like you to answer a question for us in the comment section down below. What is your movie that you think of as kind of a hidden gem? One that you know about, but maybe not a lot of other people do. Well, next week, Krista and I will be reviewing the big summer blockbuster, Iron Man 3, as well as talking about the season finale of our favorite new show, The Americans. Please like and subscribe to this video. Join us on our website, thoroughlyentertained.com, to see some of our longer reviews and sign up for our summer movie guide by entering your email address. And join us on our quest to be thoroughly entertained.